talk about transportation. And, transportation is one of those issues that, there's the famous quote that there's no Democrat or Republican way to take out the trash. Like, transportation is a lot like that. Like, it's something that it touches everyone's life and it's important. And I would say, covering the mayor, the biggest transportation story of the year was his battle with Uber, which was, the taxi app company that's really popular. It's sort of, it came in, and I used to be the transit reporter in 2011, and the big story in 2011, a big transit story, was how bulletproof the yellow cab medallions were. They were a better investment than gold. They had a better rate of return than like index stocks. There's all these stories. This was this like unbelievable investment that you could make so much money off of. That was 4 years ago. You now have the biggest taxi medallion owner in the city, owns like 900 medallions. Gene Friedman's declaring bankruptcy. You have more more Uber taxis on the road than yellow cabs. And the number of yellow cabs is like a highly regulated thing. Even just getting extra medallions would be this like difficult process that you had to go through, Albany. So what happens, this little Uber comes in, they're now expanding, I think it's like 2,000 cars a month or something they're adding. So as mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio started out pretty innocently enough, says, I want to study growth. And it was really like, it was like kind of like all hell broke loose. Like one day he says it, and then Uber, which is worth $50 billion, which is valued at $50 billion. Sort of just comes out of nowhere. There's TV ads. It was like a campaign, and it's the summer. There's TV ads every time you turn the television on. They actually made an app called the de Blasio app. So every person in New York City that opened up an Uber, they could send a letter to City Hall and say, I want my Uber. They basically and there would be a little thing telling you, like, if de Blasio's bill to curb our growth goes through, your cab will take 25 minutes to come. Right now, you're only gonna have to wait 3 minutes. And so everybody, got this thing. So de Blasio really, and I think this somewhat shows his progressiveness in that you could argue that a different type of mayor might not want to regulate a super fast growing, startup that is really popular. Mike Bloomberg, he had his issues with the yellow cabs. I don't think that he would have been so quick to limit growth and to want to regulate this, company. But, the yellow cab industry, it's been here, the medallion system's been in place since Fiorello LaGuardia, which is, you need a medallion to run a cab. And you buy it from the city, it raises a lot of money from the city. So de Blasio, in his attack against them, he took a very sort of textbook progressive campaign that he ran against them, which was, he said, they're not protecting workers enough, we don't know what's going on with them, they're expanding, it's bad for the environment. So he sort of takes that, and ended up not really working because he didn't have the support in the council and it sort of fell through. But he did, he gave it the try that way. It sort of showed, another thing that happened with that was that there was a problem that Uber took his base a little bit in that they had a lot of minority support. There were minority politicians that, this has always been a problem with taxis where they don't want to go to the outer boroughs. They don't want to go, there's problems with minorities that say, they can't get picked up. So Uber took this tactic where they took the minority, they took minority New Yorkers. They had the borough president of Brooklyn, who's black, got up there and said, I'm in a suit and tie and I can't get a yellow taxi. They won't stop for me. And this was really like, grabbing at de Blasio's base. So it ended up falling through. Other sort of ways, I don't necessarily feel as though in many ways the mayor is a textbook progressive on transportation issues. He has never embraced bike lanes in the way that Mayor Bloomberg did. City Bike has expanded really significantly under his watch. It's on the Upper West Side, Upper East Side. Now it's in the outer boroughs. The Mayor de Blasio, not that he, they put out press releases, but he never, when, City Bike was sort of Bloomberg's baby, the mayor never really went out and touted those. He also recently, at least he said he would think about ripping up the pedestrian plazas in Times Square, which are really, really beloved by transportation, like mass transit advocates. And these plazas have made it so that you can't drive through Times Square, and they're hated by drivers, but they're really liked by people who for years have said that the congestion there has been bad for the environment. It's also bad. There's so many people on the sidewalks that it's spilling out. So this was a pretty recent thing, and I think it really surprised a lot of these sort of mass transit advocates and transportation advocates that were really happy with that aspect of it. But the thing with de Blasio, I think that's sort of different, is that he is an outer borough guy. And I think your real progressive transportation advocate is not, like, de Blasio is a guy who drives. He comes from an area where a lot of people have cars, and he doesn't necessarily, he can understand like the frustration of being stuck in traffic in Times Square and wanting to maybe drive in if you're coming in to see a Broadway show, which is sort of like an outer borough feeling on that you don't want to come out of a Broadway show at 10:30 at night and hop on an hour subway to get out to Brooklyn. So yeah, I wouldn't say that he is the most progressive on transportation, but he's progressive in the sense that he wants his transportation policies to uplift the poor, and that's sort of the focus of what he's thinking. Like, he has this 5-borough ferry system, but he's more, I would say his transportation is more like an outer borough New Yorker than your typical transportation advocate. And his politics are always progressive. You forgot, he's always, but when he comes into a fight with somebody like Uber, or he's always going to sort of frame it in the like anti-big business, or government needs to solve this problem. This Vision Zero, which is his big transportation policy, which is that like government, there's the Vision Zero, his Vision Zero plan would be that there is not going to be a single person fatality, pedestrian fatality by 2024. And I think that's a very progressive vision, that like government could come in and sort of redesign the streets and redesign this problem, which is really government battling death, right? So government's going to come in, take this, and we're going to stop death by traffic. And I feel like to feel as though government is a solution in such a problem like that is pretty progressive. So he's complicated, like a lot of people with transportation.